So what we're going to look at now is we're going to start to look at price. Okay, obviously at some point when we're thinking about our product or service, we need to work out, well, how much are we going to start charging for this sort of for our product or service, or the various offerings that we have. So we begin to consider, what does the price mean? Okay, so as far as a bit of a background on that, we start to think about the relationship of the actual value, so what it's worth, measured against the perceived value, so what the person thinks it's worth. And that determines the buyer's readiness to act. If they think they're getting the right product at the right price, they're pretty much going to be keen to get involved. If they think they're getting a great product for a bargain price, they'll certainly move very quickly. And we'll think about pricing strategies and how that might come across in a minute. On the other hand, if they really don't feel they're going to get value for money, they're probably going to be a little bit more reluctant to actually purchase your goods or your services. One of the things they'll also use your price to do is to use it as a comparison tool against your competitors. Okay, they're going to start to think about, well, if you're charging this and they're only charging that, what is it about your product that's going to justify a higher price? It allows the buyers then to make a bit of a judgment. Same, if they're looking at your competitors and you have a better price, then they might be attracted to that too, but it's certainly an attraction part of what people are doing. So we need to start thinking about making a pricing decision, but it has to consider a range of various factors. And we need to think about, first of all, who is our target market? Okay, so that's the first factor I need to think about. Okay, if I understand who the target market is and who I'm trying to sell to, that's going to really make a determinant on price. If I'm dealing with a sort of, a day-to-day mum and dad type area, I can't charge $1 million for my product perhaps. Okay, I need to really think about it. If I'm down at the high rollers room, down at the local casino, I can sell a $13,000 cocktail or something bizarre like that, okay? Because they've obviously got the ability to purchase, and also I need to think about who am I aiming at and what are their habits, okay? So it needs to be the right price to the right people. I also need to think about my business objectives, okay? So what am I trying to achieve in the business by, setting a price? So what do I want to do? Where are we going? Okay, so I need to think a bit more broadly about why I'm setting the price I am. Are we a new company trying to get into a market? Are we just there trying to maximize short-term profit? What are the goals that we have at that point? We also need to consider our broader marketing mix. Okay, so I need to think about, when I'm looking at the broader marketing mix, I need to think about, well, what's the place where they come to get my product, okay? Because obviously if I'm renting a large warehouse, well, that has money that needs to be recovered so I can pay for the large warehouse. If I've got a large group of staff, likewise I need to pay for those. All that marketing doesn't come cheap, so I need to think about recovering my costs to some degree there. I also need to think about, well, what are my competitors doing? Okay, because if my competitors are out there and they're charging a lower amount, then obviously I might need to start thinking about that too. Okay, if I charge extraordinarily more than them, then I have to really justify that with a better product. Pizza Hut and Dominos, they both sell pizzas, they're about the same price. They're also about the same quality. Some will argue, most of the time you could eat the box instead. But ultimately they're starting to look at, what are my competitors doing, okay? McDonald's, once again, Hungry Jack's or Burger King, KFC, okay? So a lot of these things are designed around, I go in, and regardless of where the customer goes, they're going to end up paying about the same amount for their lunch or whatever it happens to be off the same offerings. I also need to think about, what are the rest of the costs of my product or service, so means of production, etc. So what's actually gone into making that good or service is also going to some degree, work out what my price is. There's no point if it costs me $100 to make something and I'm only selling it for $110, well, that's not really going to cover these things, so I need to think about that a little bit more carefully about what I'm trying to achieve. So I have different things that I'm trying to get into when I'm thinking about setting my price point. Okay, there are a bunch of different objectives I might have. As I said, I might be looking to maximize my cash flow. I might be trying to get in there quickly and start to generate funds. I could have been at the start of my product or service. I need to start getting some cash back fairly quickly. I might need to consider what the competition's doing. I might want to place myself and place the competition out. I might also want to control demand. Okay, if I set a price at a certain point, that can shape how people can and cannot purchase it. It changes their marketing decision or what they want to do from there. So I might have a limited range of product at the start, so I price it a little bit higher, makes people think about it. I can control demand there and go from there. So I might also be wanting to do things like increase sales, so I might initially drop the price of my product to get more of it out there for various reasons that we'll go into fairly shortly. Okay, so my pricing method is I can look at a cost-based pricing. Okay, so in other words, when I'm coming up with this price, I can start asking some other questions. And the question I might ask is, well, you know, what's the production cost? Okay, so what did it cost me to make it? Okay, so what did it cost me to put together the goods or the services, okay, to produce and deliver? And then I can charge my margin on that. I can also think about what is the demand. Okay, so if there's, you know, if I only got a limited demand, I've really got to think about how I'm going to set that price. You know, how many people want it? Is this a hot commodity, or is it a commodity people don't really need a lot of? And when we start to look at the product life cycle shortly, we'll start to go into that as well. But it could be a product that's at the end of its life cycle. For example, VCRs, when we finally got rid of the video player, they were going pretty cheap as $100. But in their heyday, you actually paid quite a lot of money for them, but the demand fell away. The other thing that I have to look at also is the competition. Okay, once again, as I say, what is our competition out there doing? Okay, so what effect are they having in the marketplace, and how much do they charge? So I need to think about my pricing method. Do I want to be the same as them, or is there somewhere else that I want to go? Okay, so there are various factors that I have there. Okay, so when we're coming up with our strategies, we've actually got a couple of different options about how we set our pricing strategy. Okay, so there's a few different ways we can go about that, and we'll go into a little bit about why we choose certain ways to go. So one of the ways we can go is by skimming the market. Okay, and when we're talking about skimming, we're charging a comparatively high price for the product. Okay, so we're not trying to compete with everybody else. We'll probably sell a few less, but you know, we'll get enough sales to get by. So the idea is not to reduce ourselves to chase everybody else, but understand our product's worth what it is and setting a price accordingly. We're not trying to get down to the next level, which is market penetration. Okay, and the point with the market penetration is we actually bring that price down so we can make an impact into that market and secure a growing sales and a high market share. Okay, so what we're trying to do there is to get our product a little bit more used, you know, to try and get a market that's going to continue to come back and keep using it. We might also have a return that we're looking to get. So by way of return, we're talking about setting an actual price for our product that's going to get us a target rate of return, or return on investment, ROI, or a predetermined interest rate. So in that case, we can say return on investment. We can express that in dollars or percentile, or whichever way we want to do it. So if we put a certain amount of money in, we know that we want to make a certain amount of money back off that, okay, and can price accordingly. What we also start to look at is also start to think about going rate. And when we look at going rate, we look at, well, what's everyone else charging? Okay, so you get to a point where in your business that you're charging the same amount as the guy down the street, okay, that there isn't a whole lot of variety in the pricing. People just come along and, you know, they know they're going to pay you $50, they'll pay the next guy $50, everyone charges $50. It's the same with quite a lot of products. If I need to get a green slip for my car, which is the insurance product, what you'll find is that almost all the products are around about the same price, okay, because that's a fairly sensitive market, seems to work well with that. The other thing that we look at is perceived value pricing, okay, perceived value. And when we're starting to look at perceived value pricing, we're saying setting the price to what the consumer believes it's worth. So it doesn't matter what it actually cost us to make, etc. It's about, well, how do they see the value of that? Okay, so that might allow us to mark things up for quite a bit. There's also image pricing, which is, you know, once again, fairly similar. Some would argue there are products that we know about in the market that people think, well, that's fairly expensive for what you're getting, but it comes with a good image. And I know there's certain IT companies that would certainly fall into that there's certainly an image attached to the product, and people pay for that accordingly. They want it regardless of the pricing. We can also think about our product line pricing. And when we're looking at our product line, what we're starting to talk about there is that we're providing the customer choice based on the product rather than the price. Okay, so another variable in there. Psychological pricing, and that's one that we would have seen a lot of. psychological pricing. And what we're looking at there is you'd see the classic one of $9.99. Okay, so they're setting odd numbers to try and prompt a bit of a response and to get people thinking in different ways. So it gives them a different pricing position. If everyone else is $10, saying it's $9.99 allows you to say it's under $10. Even though we can see it's only 1 cent difference, it still has a really marked impact on our customers. So those odd little things, you know, 19,999 is not the same as 20,000, etc. Okay, so the number at the front can be a real determinant of how it works, even though there might only be a very marginal difference in the actual price. Even with rounding, if you go to a normal shop, that's going to be $10 anyway. Okay, another one we can look at is loss leader pricing. Okay, now loss leading is where we set a price to attract a customer into our store. A good example of loss leader pricing is when I go to Woolworths or Coles, I can buy a loaf of bread for $1 and a litre of milk for $1. Now the reality is they might not make any money on that. In fact, they might even actually make a loss. But what will happen is when I go to their store to buy the cheap product, I'll buy other things while I'm there, and then I'll pay the additional premium. So they don't make their money on the initial sale, they make the money on the follow-up sales. Other companies that might sell large electrical goods, no name in particular, they might be in the community selling large TVs, etc. They mark the price down to get people in, and then what they do is they make their money selling you the accessories to go with your TV. You know, you buy the nice TV, then they tell you need the nice cables, you need the, you know, the home theatre and all the rest of the things there to go with that. So it's not just the one product, but in fact it's a whole lot. Another thing they might look at doing is discount pricing. Okay, you might actually have discount pricing going on, which involves reducing the price for a product or service, okay, to attract new customers. Particularly when you're new, that might become a feature there. Offer a discount initially at the start to get people used to using it. There's also distress. Okay, and this is where we hope not to end up. Okay, distress pricing is liquidating or closing down the business. Okay, closing down sale, everything must go, including the furniture. That's usually highly discounted. They're just trying to, you know, cut their losses, move on, possibly pay people out. Okay, and then we also have differential. Okay, differential pricing, where we charge people different money, basically, you know, depending on what market segment they go into. Now that doesn't sound terribly nice, but then when you think about it, it actually means things like, you know, if you charge an adult one price and you charge a child for another price, even though it's notionally the same thing. You know, you might have a student discount for going to the cinemas, might be a child ticket, it could be a whole range of different things. You might have age benefit discounts. There's a whole lot of different prices that you might go into that. So that's the differential price. So that's really a whole lot of strategies there about how we set the price, okay? There's quite a few there. You need to think about where you're going to fit in. You're going to have to think about, you know, is it that you want to penetrate a market? Are you looking to get a particular return on your investment? Do you just set the price, you can't really work it out, so you're just going to go with a going rate, you just want to be part of the market, you're not trying to be a leader or anything like that? Is there going to be perception or image around your product that you're going to think about? Are you going to look at going by product line? Do you need to engage in psychological pricing? Do you want to get people to come into your store with a loss-leading product? Do you want to provide discounts to get people to try your product? Hopefully you're not in distress where you need to get rid of your product. And then do you want to have a bit of a differential, charging people differing prices based on their status and their customer demographics. But anyway, that's pretty much the pricing strategy, and I hope that helps.